and welcome to Whale FM, a platform for connecting with the hottest movers and shakers in the metaverse and NFT ecosystem today. I'm Candy, known as Rudem00se in the metaverse, here with a very special guest to discuss their artistic journey and the path that led them to the NFT or non-fungible space. So I'm absolutely honored to have the opportunity to introduce our special guest today for this Whale FM episode, the amazingly talented singer, songwriter, musician, record producer, and contributor to the metaverse now, Ryan Tedder. And I will say I've actually been a big fan of One Republic since the early 2000s, the MySpace days. So I know, right? So this is, it's been amazing watching your career, the growth since then. And we really appreciate you coming on to Whale FM and chatting with us about the NFTs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Has been very exciting. So to get started, I know I gave a little introduction about all of the things or some of the things that you've done. It's obviously not all of them, but I think the community would appreciate hearing a little bit more about your career journey, directly from the source. So can you tell us a bit more about how you first got started and the progression you've gone through professionally over the years?
I'll rip through it as fast as I can. So I got started in music and acting kind of at the same time. I wanted to be an actor and a musician and back and forth, but I sadly didn't live anywhere near where any of that could really happen in a meaningful way. I was born in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, lived outside of Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma is not the center of the technological or I would say cultural universe, needless to say. Great people, but for anyone out there that's not from a major city, you know what I'm talking about. So I was that kid that grew up dreaming of moving to New York or LA or London or anywhere, Tokyo. I was like, take me somewhere. And I chose music as my pathway to travel, to see the world. I wanted to see the world. That was my objective number one. Above and beyond anything else, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to live in different places, see every city that you can, from Cairo to Cape Town, to Stockholm and you name it, to Shanghai. I wanted to travel the world, and I needed a gateway to allow that. So I chose music. I discovered in the late 90s that recording artists did not write their own songs. Shock, surprise. Not all of them, but many of them, many of the biggest hit records were not written by the people that were singing them or performing them. That was like finding out Santa Claus wasn't real. It was disappointing, yet at the same time I go, wait a minute, well, who's behind the curtain? Who's the wizard? And then I discovered all these songwriters, all the wizards. I discovered Diane Warren and Babyface, and I discovered Mick Rock Bob Rock, and obviously Quincy Jones and Phil Spector, and I could go on and on about all the Motown songwriters and whatnot. Anyway, long story short, I was like, oh, there's a career to be a songwriter. You can write the songs you can hear and see in movies. And then when I knew that I wanted to go into music, I'm sitting in a movie, and we get to the end of the film, and the music in this particular movie was so moving that it was just overwhelming. And then the end title song, the final pictures are happening, and there's a song playing over the final picture. And I sat there going, oh my God, I'm pretty sure the movie was, because I was sitting with my dad, and I turned to him and I said, this is what I want to do for a living. He goes, what's that? And I go, put music to visual pictures. So it's ironic that we're having an NFT conversation today. I didn't think about the connectivity here, but my foray into music was because of film, and the marriage of imagery and picture with original music creates umami, audio visual umami. And that's what it moves people to tears. Right. And I'm pretty sure it was this is kind of not cheesy. It was a good movie, but Armageddon. I'm pretty sure that it was I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep. It was the Aerosmith record. And I was like, oh my God, Aerosmith and Ben Affleck and whatever the girl was that I was obsessed with that's in the movie. So I was like, I'm writing songs for a living. That's it. I want to be a recording artist. I want to write songs for movies. I moved to Nashville during the summertime. During college, I would do internships. I would backpack throughout Europe for the first half of the summer. I'd save my money all year, backpack through Europe. Then I would do internships for like recording studios, record labels. And I ended up in Nashville like 2000, the year 2000. And I entered a contest that MTV was having, like back in the TRL days. MTV, like, win a record deal, like basically the precursor to American Idol, The Voice, and all that stuff. It didn't exist yet. It was a year away from existing, literally like 1 year away. So I entered this contest in a Planet Hollywood in Nashville, where I was staying at that time. And I wrote and performed an original song. I won. They send me to New York. I go on the internet, votes. Now, this is the crazy thing too. My whole career is based on the internet. This was the first online voting that MTV had ever done. They post a photo of myself, a bio, and my original song the day before or the week before. And anyone could go on MTV.com and vote for who they wanted. And 50% of the vote tallied was based on crowdsourced voting. And the next day, the judges were Brian McKnight, Pink, and a couple other people. Anyway, I won that. I won a record deal. Timbaland saw that show. This is right before Justified and Crimey River, and like Timbaland had his whole run. And a year later, he tracks me down. I'm in Nashville at this point. I've graduated college. I have a degree in marketing and advertising, which is about it's less valuable than the Top Shot I bought a few weeks ago. So anyway, he flies me to New York. I end up moving to New York and Miami, following him around while he's working with Missy Elliott. I saw him when he was doing like Work It, that whole like Missy Educate, like that whole album, Miseducation, I think it was, that whole album with all the crazy Missy Elliott records. I was there when he did those. When he did the day he did Cry Me a River with Justin Timberlake, he played me the demo like that night. He's like, check out what I did today. I then sat in on a bunch of Justin Timberlake sessions. Who else came through? I sang background vocals on Missy Elliott stuff. And all the while I'm writing my original music, and he puts me in the booth one time with Bubba Sparks. I write a song, he records it. It becomes my first cut, my first professional musician, whatever. And cut 2-3 years later, I'm in Los Angeles. My deal with Tim has expired. I had already written Apologize. And I started a band because the idea of being another white guy holding an acoustic guitar, singing like love songs, just made me want to vomit, because there were so many of them at that time in like 2003, 2004. And by the way, the John Mayer existed and he was better than all of us. So I was like, I'm not going to try and do that. So I started One Republic. Apologize didn't sound like anything else. So I thought that kind of felt like its own genre. And if it weren't for MySpace and the internet, I would not be on this interview. I would not have launched my own artist project. I would not have done any of it, because right when we started in LA in 2004, you were still papering telephone poles to let people know that you had concerts. I would crash parties on Melrose Avenue. Like if I saw like an event or a party taking place, we would walk in with flyers and just like steal drinks and like, hey, we have a concert tomorrow night. And it's like mortifying to do that. This is when MySpace launches, Pure Volume, all the stuff, Facebook. I see MySpace, and similar reaction that I had to blockchain, DeFi, NFT. It's the same feeling where I see something and I go, oh my God, this is going to be everything. This is going to be everything. And I gave my band the biggest sales pitch ever on getting on MySpace. There were 2 million people on MySpace at this point. And I was like, you don't get it. This is going to be the biggest shit in the world. Like everyone's going to be on this. We can get our art, our music for free to everyone and let the world decide if they want it without record labels. We don't need anyone in the middle. They get to decide. And nothing like this had ever existed before. Long story short, we get dropped by our label. Columbia Records drops us the week after we play Coachella. We played Coachella the year that Daft Punk played with the Pyramid and Madonna. It was crazy. 2006, we get dropped a week later with Apologize, Stop and Stare. The label's like, not good enough, peace out. And that night, the night we get dropped, I take our music, I put it up on MySpace, which we were not allowed to do until we got dropped. I put it up on MySpace. Within 2 months, we were the #1 most listened to artist in the world. And we rode the wave of MySpace from 2 million people to 250 million. And we were the most listened to. Apologize was the most played song in the world. Stop and Stare was like second. And we were the #1 unsigned band in the world. And then every label called us to sign us. And My Chemical Romance got signed off like Pure Volume MySpace, The Fray, Colby Calais, a bunch of different Panic at the Disco. All these bands were getting signed off of MySpace and off of Pure Volume. And all these labels called us to sign us, including the label that dropped us. And then I'm going to shut up about all this. We can get back to NFTs. But we ended up signing with Interscope, reuniting with Timbaland. Apologize was never supposed to be our first single. We were an alternative rock band. But that remix got so big that we literally had to change genres and go from being like, Radiohead was my favorite band at the time, and Doves and Oasis. And so our music was a lot darker and a lot more alternative. And then that remix of Apologize, law of unintended consequences, it became so big that we were like, we either shift our sound to be more pop or we die on the vine, and we're a one-hit wonder with Apologize. So we shifted our sound, thank God, and have been releasing music, since 2007, losing Grammys since 2007 as a band. It's been amazing. And then as a songwriter producer, at the same time that Apologize came out, I had written Bleeding Love and produced that. And that went #1 in the world, like 35, 40 countries. That was #1 in the world for like 3 months. And then Apologize came out and knocked that off. And I had already been writing for I'd done a ton of stuff with Paul Oakenfold, a bunch of features in electronic music. All the DJs have always come at me to do features and stuff, and I'm still doing them to this day, working with Kygo, was working with Marshmello 2 weeks ago, working with from Sieb to Alesso to you name the artist at this point. Been doing a lot of stuff with James Blake for the last few weeks, and Portugal the Man. And and then we're releasing new One Republic music, and I'm like covering so much territory, like Adele, Paul McCartney, Beyonce. I wrote Halo, and then after writing Halo, everybody came at me for ballads, and so I did Turning Tables with Adele, and then that was the last ballad I did for 5 years because I was so sick of ballads. And we did Rumor Has It a few weeks later, and music and technology are so similar, and trends in technology, such as NFTs, blockchain, which is, NFTs are one aspect of it, right? But it's all about hearing or seeing something before the rest of the world hears it or sees it, and saying, I think that's a hit. And then you just bet that it's a hit. And then it comes out, and then the world either decides it is or it isn't. And but I think there's a lot of similarity. Like the moment I understood what NFTs were, I'm a big collector of collectibles, of art, of everything from super rare sports cards and basketball cards, and I have like the Jesse Owens rookie card from 1937, like the Olympics, like the athlete. Like I love collecting that stuff. I've got super limited, like boom, the gorillas, eyes are not lighting up as they should. I'm a big art fan. This was a natural progression for me. I've been doing songs for film and for television commercials and for movies since day one. I got out of my college debt by doing songs for movies. They would send me a 30-second scene, and I would write original music to that scene, and they would then pay me for that, and that was my source of income for years until we had a hit. And then once I finally was making some kind of living, the first thing I did was buy art. I bought literally before we owned a house, I was trying to buy artists that I love, Keith Harings and George Condos and Warhol and Basquiat and like on and on and on. We go on, but like all of it is super limited, super collectible, one of ones. Sometimes it's like one of 30s. I have like a Damien Hirst Mickey Mouse that's like, I think one of 20. And if I wasn't in music as a songwriter or producer, I would probably have been a gallerist. Like I would love nothing more than to have been in New York in the 80s and running a gallery. That's my shit. I don't know what else to say. Like I, traveled around the world, and like everywhere I travel, like I'll buy stuff off the street. I'll try to meet artists. Like Pharrell connected me with Brian Connolly, who is Cause. And because I was like buying so much of his shit and like posting it, and then he was like noticing I was posting all his stuff, and I don't physically have room for any more of his drops, so that's becoming a problem. Like anywhere you go is just Cause, and I'm kind of a snob about it. I like what I like, and I don't like what I don't like, and like even in the NFT space, and I know that I'm taking it directly from my career into, I could give you highlights and statistics, our song Counting Stars is the #1 selling song in the history of Interscope. We just crossed 40 million in sales on Counting Stars, which is kind of crazy. That's a song that everyone told me wasn't a hit. It's not a hit. It's cool, but it's not a hit. And so much of what you do as an artist is being given, subjective opinions by people that have elevated themselves either by themselves or through some series of lucky events where they now are an arbiter of taste, or the person who's allowed to tell you if a song is a hit or not, or if it's good or not. And I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So I think all that noise is bullshit. And I think that the reason the NFT space is going off like it is, and I've had so many conversations with people, it's just ridiculous, and like crypto punks and this, that, and the other. And, it goes all the way back to like, 2012 colored coins, obviously it started with the breaking down of the Satoshis into, micro nanobits. And once you realize you could assign stuff and assign art, or just assign things to the block party, or it's to the block party. That's a band that I used to like, to the blockchain. I started seeing it taking shape. The reason I was telling Blau this last night, he was like, "Are you into mining? It's addicting." And I just said, at a certain point, I don't have the bandwidth, right? I love investing in things that are exciting. I love collecting things that I find that are beautiful, that make me happy. And I love making things that don't exist. And the NFT space to me in terms of art was such a natural progression. When the piece sold for $69 million a month ago or whatever, I was like, that makes sense to me. And the world just sees that as a screenshot and they go, what? Now I'm going to make digital art, right? And that's insane. He's been selling art. This is a buildup. You know what I mean? It's this, and even with Blau's drop that made headlines, like what people don't realize is that 99.9% of people think that's the first drop he did. He's been doing that for a minute. That's not even close to the first. And I said something, the other day to somebody, we were talking about real art. You can't compare crypto art, or you can't compare digital art or digital assets to real art, right? Which is an argument. And I said, okay, so who decided, I have a Keith Haring hanging over here that's a subway drawing. And if enough people decide that a piece of art that has limited quantity is attractive, beautiful, or desirable, the only thing that creates that value or gains that value or increases that value is the continuation of the belief that something is valuable. So when you talk about Bitcoin for a second, the moment that came out, I was like, it's over. Like my mom always warned me about the one world currency because I was raised in a very, very religious background. And that's the beginning of the end. But I had this argument with somebody the other day about Bitcoin. And we're talking about, I've made, should I throw it all into Bitcoin, or is it all going to go away? Like, what do you think about it? And I said, look, I did really well with Bitcoin, but I I didn't want to just bet on one thing. So like I came in, I believe round one, I invested with Olaf Carlson Wee in Polychain Capital, because what I knew is that Olaf, employee number one at Coinbase, was far more intelligent in this space than I am. I'm going to hedge my bets, pun intended. So I threw an investment into him, which clearly has done very well, and I've been very happy with it. But the deeper understanding that I had was relating, and I'm jumping around like crazy because that's just how I talk. But if you take Bitcoin, you look at gold, and I was telling this person, he goes, "Why is Bitcoin like? We're just deciding it has value, and people are going along with it." I was like, okay, let's take a time machine. Let's go back, I don't know, 6,000 years. Everybody's trading rocks, teeth, bones, and then one day some dude is in a river, and this shiny yellow-like material pops up in his pan, and he's like, "Oh, this is way prettier than the other rocks, and there's not a lot of it. You know what? I'm deciding now that this is more valuable than all the bones and teeth and rocks, and I think I might have something here, right? Limited supply, unique, hard to mine for. What does that sound like? There is a finite amount. So then gold becomes the standard of all currency worldwide. And the US was backed by the gold standard for years and years and years. And I gave them the gold analogy, and I go, Bitcoin, like, let's talk about the narrative with Bitcoin, mining, unique, limited, the fact that it now allows people to, what Bitcoin has come along with it. Blockchain to me is a lot bigger than a currency, and that in NFT, obviously in the NFT space, it's everything. But I was making these comparisons between our gold standard and our belief in something. And it's like the idea bubble popped in his head, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're right. If enough people decide something is valuable, assign value to it, and contain that belief and build on that belief, that asset holds or gains based on that belief, right? Or that quantity, or that, that assignation of value." And that is Keith Haring. That is, I have a Jupiter 8 keyboard over here that I got from Japan. It's the one at the bottom, right? You cannot find this keyboard. I paid $10,000 for this thing. It's ridiculous. It should have been, I think originally it was probably about like $800, but it comes from a guy in Tokyo who retrofits these things with MIDI controllers to find one that's clean, that's operable, to get the sound as a producer that you want, that can only come from a Jupiter 8. You are going to pay whatever it is, because there's a limited supply. What it does is amazing and beautiful and unique, and they're not making more of them. And so, like, once you understand the rationale behind this, that makes the sense with NFTs. We're moving into a digital world. The average person now is spending 12 hours of screen time on their phone per day. Think about that. There's 24 hours in a day. You're spending 12 hours of screen time. We've all done it and felt guilty. Your phone updates you. You spent 12, you're down 5%. You're at 11 hours, 55 minutes. And we live in a digital world. It's how we communicate. It's how companies are launched. You can like it or love it, but you can't leave it, right? Or you can hate it, like it, love it. You can't leave it. That's where we are. Art, digital art, to me, is the natural progression of moving from an analog world into a digital world. That's the space. That's where it's headed. Everybody, my 74-year-old stepfather would agree. That's where it's all headed. So to me, what we're doing in the NFT space, and what I'm doing with you guys, with Origin, with Busted Art, and what my investments now are geared towards largely, are digital assets and things that will continue to expand upon the Pandora's box that Satoshi opened when he opened it. And again, it's starting with color coins to Counterparty, Spells of Genesis, onto CryptoPunks, onto where we are now with Blau and Calvin Harris and everybody. But this is the last thing I'll say. I don't think it's a wave. I'm not trying to jump on a wave. I'm trying to get on the ocean with a boat and build better and bigger boats, because I think it's an ocean, not a wave, that's happening. And it's about the boat that you have And do people want to hang out on it? And how long do they want to stay on it? And where are you going to take them with it? And that's kind of my analogy for what the NFT space is right now and what I plan on doing. This isn't, I think, the first of many things, and allowing artists to connect directly with their fans is absolutely everything. Decentralized everything is the future of everything. I'm an investor in Jack Mallers' Strike early on. I could go off on DeFi for a minute, but I'm not going to do it. But I'm also a huge believer in DeFi, and I think that's potentially the future of finance, but that's a whole nother topic.
Thank you. That answered like probably my next 3 questions that I had for you, actually. Because I was going to ask, in addition to the experiences in the music industry, like, how do you think those have positioned you to be ready to jump into the crypto space, and, how you got into, your original journey into crypto, but this whole story that you have about Bitcoin and color tokens, and, it sounds like you have most definitely been making those connections early on, and, not just riding the wave, but like you're ahead of this. And that's pretty exciting to see.
Well, I have a kind of a moral thesis on investment, whether it's time or money. I do tons of venture capital, everything from like, everything has to make sense to me. Like if I'm gonna invest time or energy or money, it has to make sense to me. There are certain things you buy just because you love them. They have inherent value to you because of their aesthetic and how they make you feel. So whether that's one of one or one of a billion, it doesn't matter. If you want to buy the screen print of a Jackson Pollock and put it on your wall, and that gives you joy every single day, but it's bullshit and it's not real, man, like own that, and that's amazing. But there's something inherent within human beings about owning originals. And I mean, I'm one of those people. Like I get off on history. I love knowing that the paper I'm touching is the paper that I own right outside my door. I have handwritten letters from George Washington from Mount Vernon while he was president, writing to the Postmaster General. I have the letter from Abraham Lincoln handwritten on White House stationery to Secretary of War Edward Stanton during the Civil War, 1863, basically being like, yo, how bad is this shit? And he's having this conversation with the Secretary of War. I've got a photo of the first airplane taking off ever in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, signed by Orville Wright. I've got handwritten letters from Gandhi, Napoleon. I've been collecting one-of-ones since I had $1. Like that was starting with like rare sports cards when I was a kid up until now. And it all feeds into where we're at with NFTs. But let me touch on that for a second, like on some of the NFTs. Like, this might be divisive, but like, going back to, we're talking about CryptoPunks, rare peeps before CryptoPunks, memes, all these things. I understand that for certain people, they have inherent value. Like I've bought Top Shots I gave as a gift to one of my employees for his birthday, which was kind of dope because gifting somebody stock in Disney, but like I knew that he was obsessed with the NBA, and I figured this is a cool gift. So instead of getting you some ratchet bottle of whiskey or whatever, like here's a Top Shot that like likely is going to go up in value. And then like, it was funny, bought it for him on a Monday, and on Friday it was up like 25%. And I was like that gave me more joy than probably any gift I could have possibly given him, because it checks like 3 different boxes. Not everything has to be return on value. Let me give you an example. I know that CryptoPunks have been blowing up. I know that, I understand. I know that people got in for a penny. I heard a story the other day about a guy that bought a punk for $1.25, and current value, I forget what it was, 175. It was 175K, whatever it was. This guy bought it on a whim. It's going to change his life. He's literally selling it to buy a house for his family. And that made me beyond stoked. I make a lot of investments. I have purposefully not bought CryptoPunks, not because I don't think they're a good investment. I don't personally like them. Sorry. Like I don't look at it. It doesn't give me a ton of joy. I know that there are people that will make fortunes on them. I saw that, and to me, right around the time everyone was talking about it, I was like, that feels like a wave, not the ocean. I'm interested in the ocean, not the wave. And I know that there are people probably listening or watching that have made money on CryptoPunks and love them. That is amazing. I have a real life CryptoPunk standing in front of me right next to me every day, so I get it. But again, I'm into this space, but I'm a snob, and like, I don't care if shit's making money or like, there's a lot of stuff that my friends have made a fortune on that my underlying thesis is, if it doesn't personally react with me viscerally or bring me joy or happiness, if it's not something I eat, drink, consume, like I was an early investor in Sweet Green. Why? Because I was eating a shit ton of Sweet Green, and because I was like, it's completely recyclable, sustainable, forward thinking. Like this is definitely, one could argue that the future of food is definitely plant-based. So all these things lined up for me, and I was like, I have access to a bunch of shares offline in Sweet Green. I'm gonna invest in Sweet Green, and turns out I made the right investment. And I do that when I invest money in things that are not art related. I am thinking about the correlation between like long-term intrinsic value, global market trends, traveling as much as I do. I have a unique advantage that I get to see things before they happen globally, whether it's food and beverage trends, art trends, you name it. Like on my back wall here, I've got a big art piece by Speto, who's this Brazilian artist in Sao Paulo. Friends with Os Chimios. Like he's the street art. Here, I'll just show it to you. Actually, it's a one of one. I actually had to sign a contract from his manager that was basically like, we will come and someone will kill you if you try to sell this, because he doesn't do pieces. He doesn't do indoor framed pieces. He's the guy that does in the side of a building that's 100 yards tall. And all over Sao Paulo, he does installations for Nike on the sides of buildings, but you can't buy and trade his pieces. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but like, I believe that I'm very hesitant to critique anyone who pays any amount for any digital asset. If it has inherent value for you, it has inherent value for you. I drive past cars every day in Los Angeles that I know cost $1 million or $500,000. And like, you couldn't pay me to own those cars. But if that car it's a combination of, does it bring you joy? Are you trying to flex? And somewhere in between joy and flex is probably where most people live with a lot of the things they do in their life. I'm trying to now lean more toward 100% towards joy. And the flex aspect of it to me is like, people that know me, I'm not a baller. I'm not bright and flashy. Like if I'm wearing a watch or like my Cause Jordans, like very few people will be like, wait, is he wearing Cause Jordans? Like I don't like to be flashy and exclamatory with the things that I buy and invest in. It's more about, it brings me joy. And for the 1 out of 100 people that happen to know exactly what that is, they're like, wait a minute, is that and I'm like, yep. And they're like, oh my God, okay. And that to me is like, that's my version of flexing. I see somebody works for NBA Top Shot as community manager. That's really dope. I'm happy that you do. I think that was a successful play, by the way.
Yeah, as you were talking about, I was like, that's really funny, because that's actually what I do when I'm not in the whale community.
Yeah, that's so. Oh yeah, that's sorry. I'm just reading the text. I didn't see who wrote it. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was exciting to hear for sure. But I really like, as you were talking about this, the emphasis that you have on collecting things that bring joy, because that, like, I've been in the NFT space, kind of doing a lot of things with Dapper Team for the last 3 years. And every time people ask advice about, what should I get into? And I'm like, literally buy the things because they make you happy, not because you think you're going to profit on them, because like that inevitably sets you up for a failure. If you buy a thing because you love it, then like you can't go wrong that way.
Yep. That's 100. You can't, that's the only way that it's a fail safe. So if it goes down, you're not pissed. If it goes up, you're super stoked, right? But it's not why you did it. And I think you have to, that's why I keep emphasizing, focus on the ocean, don't focus on the wave. And I've lost money riding waves before with investments, and I won't do it anymore. It's just not my thing.
absolutely makes sense. I think that's fantastic advice. And on that, actually, I think this would be a good time to transition now that we've talked a lot about your history, kind of in the NFT and in the digital space.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your new upcoming launch of an NFT, because that is exciting. And I love seeing, more of the, mainstream and the audio, musician artist types getting into this space, like blending those sort of passions is terribly exciting. So from your perspective, what made launching an NFT project like the next logical step for you in your creative progression?
Me not doing an NFT would be the most illogical. I'll answer it by saying the opposite. Like, me not doing an NFT launch would be the opposite of everything that I'm about, if that makes sense. Last week, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Maybe I'll say it anyway. Like, last week, I'm writing an original piece of music to a scene in Space Jam 2. I did that probably six or seven films last year. I'll do that with as many this year. My whole thing, my career started writing original music to picture. And when the NFT thing started happening, I was like, oh, this is literally what I do. This is what I do every day. So for me, it was a natural progression. The idea of doing original stuff that isn't OneRepublic, that isn't recorded for, that isn't another recording artist, because that's what I always do, but doing things that are super, it's the culmination of everything I do. It's super limited, unique, beautiful, joy inspiring, or ideally creating joy, like unlimited. The unique ability that I bring to this space, partnering with Busted Art. We went through so many different artists, by the way, to figure out what the right one is. And this isn't me shitting on anybody else's taste in art, right? We all have different tastes. A lot of the NFT space, I noticed a lot of the NFTs just in general are super futuristic, almost like they're digital to the nth degree. Like, it's super futuristic, and I'm not going to name the artists because I'm not, again, some of their images I love, but it's super like you're inside the Matrix watching cyborgs battle, right? And it's very, very, very cyberpunk, very cyberpunk. And I get that because we're in a cyberspace, right? But that's not the type of stuff that I buy. That's not I'm like tongue in cheek and whimsical. And like, I just bought a Pettibon. I have a bunch of Pettibons, but I just bought a Pettibon that I found out Brian Connolly was trying to buy at the same time. And I texted him an image of it, and he was like, I'm so glad you're the one that won that and not me. The Pettibon that I bought is Gumby. It's literally because he did a limited, if you guys don't know who Ray Pettibon is, look at Pettibon, but he did the original album art for Black Flag and for a bunch of different bands, and is a phenomenally influential album artist, music inspired artist, street artist, like visual artist, painter, you name it, right? And very, very collectible. And I bought it because in the scene, like, it's this serious scene, and then he painted a Gumby, like the green Gumby character. And I'm obsessed with pop art. I'm obsessed with Disney, all Disney characters. I'd buy I would buy a extremely expensive bag and then paint Mickey Mouse on it. So for my personal taste, and the reason that I partnered with who I did with Busted was because his sensibilities, Switzerland is one of my favorite countries in the world, and that's where he's based. But B, his sensibilities, he's not taking himself seriously. It's the opposite of cyberpunk. So a lot of my career in music is when everybody's zigging, I will intentionally zag. And I had this conversation with Monty Littman, the head of Republic Records, this morning about an album that I just finished executive producing. He's like, this is a total zig. The whole world's zagging musically right now, and this is a zig. What Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak just did, that's what I'm talking about. Like, everyone's doing super whispery bedroom pop, like 20 different artists are doing it. There's only one or two that are great at it. And it's all done on laptops with a mic, with almost no extra gear, just a laptop. And that's great. And I've done those songs. Then Anderson .Paak and Bruno come out with a record that is the most expensive sounding live instruments cut to tape with the best musicians on earth. Sounds like it's 1976. They come out and zag with the hardest zag imaginable, and the song goes number one. The moment I heard that song, like one listen, I was like, this is the number one record. This is, and people were like, this doesn't sound like anything that's out. And I was like, that's the point. So for my NFT, everyone else is going ultra cyberpunk. That's super dope. Everyone's already done that. And they're continuing to do that. And I bought some of that. I bought a freaking piece. I bought Faces this morning on Nifty from one of Blau's pieces, because I loved the music behind it. And I actually loved, I have a thing, it ties in with our own album artwork. That's an album we have coming up. So I've bought cyberpunk art. I want to go the opposite direction. And I want it to be whimsical. I want it to be nostalgic. The music is going to remind you of your childhood. It's going to, this is the part I bring to it that a lot of other, even musicians don't, is just my writing, what I've written and what I'm capable of writing and what I will bring to it. I will make this thing like what it is. Like we've already pieced all these parts together, but I'm obsessed with the idea of it being infinitely catchy. So as opposed to a lot of the NFTs where it's like right? It's super, it's super electro, and I love that shit too. I listen to it, like, trust me. If I had my way, Swedish House Mafia's Greyhound would be the theme song to every series on Netflix. I love it. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to create something that is beautiful and nostalgic and whimsical and remind you of like watching cartoons on Saturday morning, but so catchy that if you left it on for 2 hours, and that's what I'm really good at, is coming up with melodies and chord progressions that you can play for infinity. And in music world, we call it a low burn rate. The reason that I've been very lucky in my career, the songs that I've written, I've broken airplay records like multiple times throughout the world, or written, I've at least 4 or 5 different instances where one of the hits I had was the most played song of the calendar year in the world. Jonas Brothers' Sucker was that 2 years ago. And why is that? Like, why did that? I'm not, and believe me, what I'm doing on this for this drop is not that. It doesn't sound like that. So, but the point I'm making is, why do those songs get played so much? And how do you break a global, how is it that Happy Pharrell, or that like certain songs, Christmas music, What a Wonderful World, Louis Armstrong, like why do certain songs get played over and over and over and over and over again and you don't get sick of them? It's called a low burn rate. And it has everything to do with the shape of the melody, the chord changes you're using, avoiding dissonance. There's all these things that take place from a songwriting and production standpoint. So I'm employing all those with this NFT. So in a perfect world, the people that bid on these and that end up owning these, this is the type of thing where, unlike a lot of NFTs, where if you let it loop for more than like 30 seconds, you're like, okay, I get it. No, I wanted to create something that you could play, you could leave on for 3 hours in the background, and it just makes you feel like, I don't know, levity and amazing. And in a perfect world, I want to do something also with infinite objects. We need to get infinite objects, but we need to get speakers, because I think that's the next evolution for like the 3-dimensional. Having the digital asset, having the physical analog representation, but having the option to hit a button and hear the music. So that's another sidebar with infinite objects that we can have after this. But that's something else I want to do. And we're doing 4 tiers. there's a one-on-one animated visual. There's going to be several physical art pieces related to the NFT. For instance, like, I think that, boom, right? Something like this. It's not going to look like this. It's obviously my original character. It's not this character, but this is badass. It's sitting right next to All My Cause. And we're going to be doing super limited versions that are associated with that are the actual visual representation in 3-dimensional form as part of this drop. Yeah, I'm trying to think. We're going to do some smaller art pieces. We're going to do also some personal experiences as well. Like, something that I thought would be interesting is for one of the winners, possibly two, for me to collaborate with them on an original piece of music, which is, I don't do that. I got an offer last week from some guy in a foreign country I won't name that was like, here's a blank check to write an original song for fill in the blank. And I did not reply. Like, I just don't do that. Because for me, there has to be something behind it. It needs to be my idea saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. Not somebody's I'm taking a paycheck to do this for the sake of doing it. Doing it as part of an NFT drop and part of a statement, that is something that I think is extra special. And so collaborating on a piece of music with somebody, I only work with recording artists or like writers that have put in years and years and years and have made it to LA and are now like top tier writers. That is the way it works in the music industry. You don't just show up and end up, on a court playing tennis with Pete Sampras. It doesn't work that way. That just dated myself by name checking Pete Sampras. I realize that, but the point. You get what I'm saying. So I want to have some personal experiences with some of these winners. Let me reframe that. Personal experiences in the world of music and art, not unlimited personal experiences.
Very nice. And so with this, like, I'm really excited because you mentioned that, not only are you going to have these visual representations, and you mentioned that there's a collaboration with an artist. So it's not just you working on the NFT. You've actually, kind of gone through and found the right artists to work with and are pairing some audio with some, actually analog type experiences with your NFT drop. And that's a really interesting way to add extra dimension in this space. And we have a preview actually of one of, let's see, your teaser images. And are we ready to share that?
I'm ready to see it. I know what it is, but yeah.
And so this is like, I don't really know what exactly I'm looking at, but it feels whimsical.
It's a fox.
It's a fox. And
That's
it is
the character.
This is the character. And so we will be able to see more of this once your NFTs are released and, kind of comes up. So that's exciting. And there was also a video that we have here with audio in the teaser. So let's play that.
Yep. I can't hear the audio part of it, but that's just the little teaser. That's not the actual, that's not the actual song that's a part of it, but that's the little teaser video.
Yes, and it was definitely the teaser, sort of like when you're waiting, and it reminded me because you mentioned you do a lot of audio for films, you get that kind of like beep, beep before, and kind of builds that anticipation to see what comes next. And so the dates on these are April 27th. So we're just a couple weeks out at this point.
Yeah.
From the launch.
Yep.
So you mentioned,
my hat's off to Bustart for like this piece. I was like, oh man, if you hadn't already dropped this, we'd be headed this direction. But this is going to be the first of not mini drops, but of specific drops. They'll be different each time. But again, with all the cyberpunk stuff out there, it's like, I'm not going to come out with another thing that I'm not going to step to Bleeple. I'm not going to step to Blau with their own aesthetic. That's their aesthetic. And my aesthetic is pop art and like young culture. And like, if I could rent an apartment on Main Street in Disneyland for a month, I would do it. So like, we're not obviously infringing on the copyright of existing IP and characters that we're not allowed to use. So we went through a bunch of different options. We went through, I probably did the dance with 4 or 5 different artists. And then once we locked in with Bust Art, we went through dozens and dozens of characters. This was not like an overnight thing. And landed on one and then tweaked the hell out of it over and over again to create the individual specific things that and again, all I can say is it had to feel, for me, irreverent, youthful, whimsical, nostalgic, make you like filled with joy. And ultimately at the end of the day, I remember telling Bust Art, I was like, I want a piece of art that if I was walking through down the street in Zurich or somewhere in some other foreign city, and I walked past an art gallery and I saw this character, I would walk straight in through the door and say, whatever it costs, I'm buying it. And I can tell you for sure that that's what we landed on.
That is exciting. So we are going to be looking forward to that with the release. And I would say even with the teaser image and, the silhouette of the fox, like I kind of just want to give it a hug. So exactly. I feel like we're heading in the right direction there for sure. And I know the community is going to be really pumped to see everything as it's released.
So they are.
Yes, and you did mention that, there will be different, tiers, and maybe that's part of the drop mechanics. I don't know if there are any additional details that you had for sharing aside from, you mentioned that there would be.
The tier 1 is going to, I'll go backwards. Like tier 4 is, 7 to 10 winners. I actually have a little, so I don't forget it. 7 to 10 winners, NFT visual with a little bit of music. And then there's going to be several small physical art pieces. Tier 3 is going to be number 4, 5, and 6 winners. NFT visual with a little bit of music, and there's going to be some small art pieces. Tier 2, number 2 and 3 winners. Visual with music, smaller art pieces, personal experiences that we will do together. If you make it into tier 2, we're going to interact in real life, not just in a digital forum, and not just on the blockchain. Number 1 will be tier 1 will be a one-of-one NFT that's animated visual with original music. That my goal is to make it be the most hypnotic, hookiest thing that's possible. That's my objective with all this, is that it's just shockingly hooky, and you're like, I just want to sit here for eternity listening to this. There will be some art pieces that are related to the NFT in tier 1, and then some personal experiences as well that we'll do together. And again, I'm also sidebarring on that. I'm hoping that I can make this happen after this drop. I think we can, but I want to, for some of these winners, I want to create in the physical space with infinite objects. They have the ability, they're the leader in, capturing these pieces of art that obviously are looping. So you have that physical representation, but I want to attach audio to that. So I'm going to be speaking with them this week about getting like a very nice, discrete, high quality speaker with literally you hit one button, it plays, you turn the button off, it doesn't. But the idea of having that kind of low volume piece of music attached to that 3-dimensional art piece, that's just a bonus. Obviously what you're buying is a digital asset, not 3D. But I think as we are segueing away from an analog world into the digital space, look at these as transitional pieces that like you can obviously see it on your, whatever your device is. You can see it on the blockchain, but now you also have this nice physical representation of it. And it'd be like if he was singing Feel Good Inc. right now, all I did is hit a button, that would be the shit. But you get where I'm going. I feel
like I would hit that button like on repeat all day. So
yeah, that'd be incredible.
That definitely would. Oh my God. So this is really awesome. And I love the fact that, as you mentioned with your drop, you're actually integrating the fans and the collectors into the experience.
Correct.
And with that, that actually gets us into another question that I was going to ask, because there are platforms, like Clubhouse, that have really been adding fuel to the mainstream adoption of the NFT space. And have you found that this, or even other platforms, have really provided meaningful interactions for you in this space so far? How have you been leveraging those?
100%. I actually did I have a chat coming up this evening, actually, and I did a Clubhouse chat a month ago with the Chainsmokers and with, who all was on there? There was a bunch of people on there. And the whole thing we were talking about was basically ticketing and blockchain art. It was covering a lot of things that were like blockchain derivative. And, one of the things we were talking about again was the idea that specific to ticketing, the conversation, it drifted from art. It was all to do with the blockchain, but it drifted from art and NFTs to ticketing. And the idea that let's say in a tour, an artist might, I just used a nice round number, right? Some artists generate hundreds of millions or even $1 billion. Let's use the number $1 million. If you generate $1 million in tickets, a newer artist, $1 million in tickets total. But the secondary market for those tickets, let's say, generates 2 or 3 million. The artist participates 0 in that. All those scalp tickets, 100% of it goes to these intermediaries. The artist doesn't see a dime of it. So part of our conversation was talking about ticketing, where every time a piece of art or ticket sells or resells, the creator gets 10 or 20% carry on that profit each time, which to me is a no-brainer. And I think that percentage can be obviously debated, but that was a big part of the conversation. And then I went down a rabbit hole listening on Clubhouse, on and on and on for nights, specifically on the NFT space and on DeFi. I'm really fascinated by DeFi. As I said, I invested in the Series A in Jack Mallers' company by Zap, his payment system using Bitcoin, a Bitcoin neobank, using Bitcoin as a system or a superhighway instead of as a hold asset. The analogy I use is skipping a pebble off a glass lake, right? As opposed to the pebble going into the water, getting delayed, getting put in line or queue to make a Bitcoin transaction. His ability using Lightning protocol to just instantly remit payments around the world and exchange them blew my mind, which led me down a DeFi rabbit hole. And then I listened to every single podcast that Jack Mallers had done because I just became fascinated by him. And I've done this anytime I get curious about anything, I do the same thing. I did the same thing with NFTs and, back in the day with Blau, I've listened to all his stuff going back into 2018. I like to if I'm curious about something, I like to dig as deep as possible. And I will be doing a number of Clubhouse conversations on this topic and, going as deep as we can and engaging other artists in it. When I talked to Calvin Harris last night and I said, how was your experience? He said, it was he used some word like resplendent or some adjective. He's like, I felt like I felt like I was floating. Like it was like releasing a new album or new music. He said, I couldn't believe how much enjoyment I got out of it. And that was like Calvin Harris, he's the GOAT. Like that had me so hyped on what we're doing. And again, this is the beginning of multiple ones, but I think Clubhouse is huge for this space. And I think YouTube, obviously. YouTube is the giant catch-all of all information, and you can lose your life going down rabbit holes on tech on YouTube. So that's the long-winded way of answering your question. That yes, I have been active in that space on Clubhouse, in this space specifically, and have consumed an embarrassing amount of hours on YouTube.
Well, and YouTube is especially interesting because they, for the longest time, were kind of like anti-crypto.
Yeah, they were.
So it was, I think actually my YouTube account got halted.
I've known Gary Vee for ages and been friends with him. We were partners on a couple different businesses together. We have half a dozen mutual friends in New York City. And so Gary Vee and I offline about all kinds of stuff that's coming. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, he's a savage, so he's doesn't sleep, and he's too keenly aware of everything in real time all the time. And one of the first people that I had a conversation with about NFTs, shock surprise, was Gary Vee.
And he's been making all those doodles on his Twitter and nudging everyone to get wallets. So I'm curious to see how that turns out here soon.
And that's part of the thing that I like about Origin is it's less complicated. Like, my mom's not getting a crypto wallet. Like, she doesn't know how to do that. Like, and and that's also the other huge reason that I'll shut up about DeFi. The other reason I was such a fan of Strike, of the actual app, because I got on it and started monkeying around and was just like, I wonder if I could like use it. I mean, it's, Venmo charges a fee. PayPal, we've all used it, but like, I've been shut down by PayPal so many times. It takes a long time. They take big fees. And being able to download an app and just send money using Bitcoin, but not be affected by the fluctuation of Bitcoin pricing, and send it without any fee whatsoever around the world, 200 countries. That was, for me, like, made my head explode. And anyway, that's a whole nother interview. We're talking about NFTs, not DeFi, but they're in the similar space.
They really are. And having that freedom, I think, like, that applies in both spaces, both the DeFi and the NFT, the breaking down of barriers and restrictions that allow more people to be involved.
That's the future of the world is transparency and decentralization, period. And that is what blockchain is bringing to the world, and connecting peer-to-peer is the future of everything. In every, I don't care what the asset class is or category or industry is, the single most obvious inflection point that creates disruption is when all of a sudden the consumer and the seller, but primarily the consumer, realizes, wait a minute, there's this dude or somebody in the middle that's just making money off me just trying to get to this person. Why can't I just get to this person? Why is this guy in the middle just being like, nope, you got to pay me, because I'm here and I'm me. And if you go through all these countless industries, those are the people that get swallowed. Because once you connect this person to this person and you remove those middlemen, decentralization, like, industries collapse, companies collapse, or they evolve. So you either evolve or you get swallowed. Because once this type of technology gets adopted, once people where I'm from in Tulsa, Oklahoma, are on this wave, like, the whole world's there, and it's game on. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The moment I saw Spotify, 2014, 2015, like shortly after it started, and I had it broken down to me, and then I requested to speak with somebody that worked for Spotify early on. I visited their campus in Stockholm, and I called my manager and I was like, it's over. And I didn't mean that in a bad way, but I was like, iTunes store, bye. Like, everything else, I just saw it. I was like, you can't compete with this. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. At that point, or shortly thereafter, 60% of Sweden was using Spotify to consume music daily, 60%. So I was getting plaques in Denmark and Sweden, all the Scandinavian countries, before anyone in America gave two shits about Spotify. I was getting plaques in Scandinavia for streams. And they were explaining to me how many 150 million streams is like 1 million in sales. And it's so much better. And it's like connecting, it's so much more integrating you with your fan base in real time and allowing you to change albums and change songs and add songs and do all the stuff. And once I saw that, it's same with NFTs, same with decentralized finance. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because once you understand how much better it is and how simpler it is and how it removes unnecessary middlemen, it's a no-brainer. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And now here we are with countries like Uganda and Zimbabwe coming online with Spotify. And every month there's another country coming online, and you see our streaming numbers keep going up and up and up and up and up without us even releasing new music. So that tells you that once a good idea catches fire, it's just a series of dominoes going around the world, and that's what I think is happening with digital art and NFTs. And we're at the tip of the spear. Really was probably a couple of years ago, but like nobody could even see that with the exception of a few people. Now we're at the tip of let's say the commercial sphere, where like people people that have not lived in this space, did not invest in Bitcoin, do not understand crypto or blockchain or anything, are all of a sudden hearing the phrase NFT is permeating. And I'm just going to wait and count down backwards until my mom can say non-fungible token. And at that point, we can do another call, because at that point, they're everywhere.
And that is a very good point. I will say I just got my parents on board. My dad's been keeping up with the Top Shot market recently. So, this is a big thing, getting, that generation wide scale on board with the mainstream. That's huge. Yeah. That's with the Spotify, as you mentioned, that really decentralized the way people were able to access music, and also was able to really introduce music to people where maybe, before you were only getting whatever was played on the radio, and it's a very selective process. But now with Spotify, there's the algorithms where if, the genre is at least in common, a lot of times they'll end up creating your daily playlist and introduce some of those new bands. And correct. I think that's, kind of the same with the NFT space, right? There were the early adopters and the people who got in and, have been kind of hustling all along. And then there are also a lot of people who have the mainstream popularity, outside of the crypto space jumping in. And the combination of those two are, I think, really going to continue to pull the space forward. And that momentum is hard to stop.
I agree. I just think it's imperative that for artists moving forward that choose to enter into this space, the one thing I would say is, and I keep using this analogy, but don't treat it like if you have no clue how to surf, don't try to catch the wave, right? And that's the only thing I would say is at least understand what it is you're doing. Educate yourself. You can't fake passion. You can't fake, you can't fake synthesizing what this space is and understanding it. So I think that's the one thing. I'm happy that people are getting into this space. I think that I just hope that it's going to be a deluge, right? And but the thing is, you see those things getting sifted out too, the things that are inherently inauthentic. And I think that I had a long conversation this morning with a manager who manages a massive global artist who wants to enter into this space with the artist they want to pair with is world renowned, phenomenal. And I gave him a 10-minute speech. I said, pump the brakes for a second. You need to understand, and this artist, both of them need to understand what this is, why it matters. They need to actually spend the time, create something truly of value. And I just said the same thing to him. I said, don't try to catch the wave if you've never touched a surfboard. And he got it. And he was like, I hear you. And he had a conversation with the big venture capitalist this morning who told him the same thing. It's a lot of people can be throwing surfboards in and breaking their necks, or just coming up and empty. It's not about monetizing this moment. It's about, being on the ocean with a boat and saying I'm here and I'm going to keep floating and we're going to keep going. And do you want to ride on this boat? And maybe the boat gets bigger and bigger and cooler and faster. But that's really what it's about. Not trying to catch a wave if you can't surf. So and this for me is and I had some people going, oh, it's so great that you're doing this. And then I had some people be like, man, I wouldn't do that. It's dead. It's over. Look what happened to that NBA dude the other day. Or whatever, fill in the blank artist. And I was like, the difference is have you even asked them? Cause I have a theory, if you asked them to even explain what it was they did, they probably couldn't explain it. And I just think with anything, if you're going to invest time, play the long game, don't play the short game. I told all my partners and people planning with this, I was like, I'm not doing one drop. I'm trying to create different, unique moments in time that are, again, extremely limited, with absolute scarcity, that have intrinsic inherent artistic value, that were I not creating them, I would buy them. If you go on my Instagram, my handle, I just say on my page, like, I create stuff I wish existed, and that's it. And for me, that's the most valuable thing. Actually care about it, actually put time into it. Hit songs don't happen by accident, and everybody using Blau as the poster child, and like Justin's, if you ever talk with it, phenomenally intelligent. Watch one 30-minute interview with a guy, and you're like, he could be teaching some type of like, course at like Stanford on anything. He knows what he's talking about. He's been in this space since 2017. So when people see that and go, wait a minute, land grab, it's like, no. That's like, you're not seeing the previous 3 to 4 years of work that went into this and understanding the space and the community. So anyway, I'll shut up on that topic, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think that's absolutely valuable advice for people kind of wanting to get into the space, because as you mentioned, like, you can't just jump in and expect to succeed on the first try without doing, your due diligence and the research. That's a big thing in the crypto space, is, the DYOR, or do your own research. And that is a huge thing for sure. And one of the questions, kind of the final questions that I had, I was wondering, in addition to, as you mentioned and really emphasized, creating, items that you would actually own yourself, that have that intrinsic artistic value.
Yeah.
How do you see the NFTs and the creation process improving or enhancing the connectedness with fans? Because I think that this, space really allows a lot of that decentralization and, kind of bringing artists closer to their fan bases. But was curious about your thoughts on that.
Recording music and recording artists such as myself, the closest you ever get is a meet and greet, right? If you pay enough money, buy an expensive enough ticket, or end up in the right list, or know somebody, you end up backstage for 1 second. It's like a photograph, and then you move on. If I release a record, like we put out a song with Kygo last summer, and it it's streamed, I don't even know at this point, 300 million times, something like that. So everyone in the world has access to it 300 million times. Whether it's Counting Stars or Halo, or songs I've written for other people, Ellie Goulding, Burn, Alesso, If I Lose Myself, your experience with them is always shared with millions of people, right? At a venue, at a concert, on your phone, whatever. It is absolutely inherently in mass. It is the opposite of scarcity. It is 100% fungible. When I think about myself and I go, okay, what would I pay, or what value would I assign to have personal time with an artist that I like, whether it's collaborating with them or like an actual one-on-one interaction with them in some way, shape, or form, owning a piece of art that they made that's unique to them, it's invaluable. It's like, I can't put a price on it. I have for my birthday a year ago, Bono, I produced the last 2 U2 albums, and I did McCartney's last album as well. And Bono made me an original piece of art for my birthday that he literally drew, painted, did lyrics on, in a million. You couldn't, I'm not even joking, if you offered me $10 million, I'm not giving it to you. Like there's no price you could pay on that, because what he means to me, what Bono's meant to me since I was a kid, and then working with him and then opening for them on tour, like remove the fact that I know him, right? If I had a piece of art from an artist that I grew up listening to, or that I love, or whatever, the price just becomes, for me, it becomes almost invaluable. And so creating these personal fan experiences, or just, human experiences, I think scarcity creates value. And like, I hate using, I'm the king of analogies, but like, what good is I'm going to use an example, like a Yeezy drop collab with Tyler, the Creator, or with, Yeezy collab with Travis Scott, and they release, and what's the value of those shoes if they strike a deal with Walmart and Payless Shoe Source, and they capitalize on the masses and make a fortune on selling 5 billion copies of them? Do you know what that would do to the brand? Like what matters is when there's 10 pairs. You know what I mean? It's like when the shoes came out, the Nike Air Jordan shoes, or not the Air Jordans, but like the Back to the Future Nike, like auto lacing. There were 10 pairs. I bid on one of those pairs. I didn't care what it cost. And then it hit like a certain number, and I was like, okay, I do care what it costs. That's too much. I'm out. But somebody's got those pairs locked down because that movie meant so much to them and that nostalgia meant so much to them. They had to have it. So how do you explain the word unique? You know what I mean? To me, it's like, I just think I've never done anything like this. I've never, ever created something. My job and my career and everything, like my life, my success has been on creating things that billions of people want to listen to and or watch, if it's like in a film, right? I've been very lucky that my taste, for whatever reason, occasionally aligns with billions of people. And whatever it is that I make, I walk into a room empty-handed, make something, chip away at it until it's done. And for whatever reason, once it comes out, it like every now and then I get lucky and billions of people are like, I can't get enough of this thing that you created. Imagine if only 3 people got it. Like, it's like you're in on a secret that nobody else knows. You're like, oh my God, look at this. Like, I'm only one of 3 people that has this. I'm one of one. So you're talking to somebody that I'm a fan of our founding fathers. Now, some of them are a little suspect for reasons that we won't get into on this chat. Like Abraham Lincoln, what's the value? I have a handwritten letter from Abraham Lincoln on White House stationery asking the head of the Civil War, the Secretary of War, how are we doing on the front lines? How are we doing, Secretary of War, in the Civil War, right after he signed the Emancipation Proclamation? So it's, for me, what is the value of that piece of paper? I'm never selling that. Like, I don't care what you offer me. I don't care if you're like, it's worth $10 million now, you should sell it. I'm like, I have a handwritten letter from Abraham Lincoln talking about the Civil War. Like, so for me, I know I'm like talking in circles about what's the value of what I'm creating, but it's like, it's the scarcity, it's the uniqueness. It's like my whole job is there aren't 10,000 of those. There's one letter that says what it says, and I have that letter. Or the handwritten speech from Gandhi that I have right over there. It's the last speech that he ever wrote before he died. So like those, to me, I don't know. To somebody else, people listening, watching, they're like, letter from Gandhi, whatever. To me, I was like, I can't not have this. So I hope that answers the question a little bit. It's like, I'm not going to tell you what the value of things are. It's up to you. But what I will tell you is that it's extremely rare, and that someone like me never does stuff like this. This is the first time I've ever done anything that's super rare and scarce. I normally do the opposite of that. So I think that alone creates intrinsic value.
Well, that really does, because it almost, I guess you could make the comparison where you're doing the things that are so mainstream that the value is then spread out amongst everyone who experiences it. But in this case, you're doing these NFT drops that are going to be very scarce. And so the value is really consolidated into that small number of things, the small number of people who will be able to experience it.
Correct. Yeah, correct. That's exactly right. This isn't like, I don't know. This is wild for me because I just don't like custom crafted songs for like a small handful of people in the world. And normally, I'm executive producing 6 albums at the same time right now. Like I'm doing Bastille and I'm well, I can't name a bunch of the other stuff because of NDAs, but I'm like executive producing a lot of stuff right now. And like I can't imagine if they were like, yo, we need to do a song for 3 people. You know what I mean? Like that, if I was to charge for that, and I'm not to sound like an ass right now, but if I was like to charge for that, couldn't afford me. Like that's just because I'm too busy. I'm doing too much other stuff like with artists and albums like in real time. So this is for me. This is for like me to do this, and in an interesting way, I'll be able to find a small handful of people around the world who I guess really like what it is I do, and we've probably never met. So that alone is going to be cool. I don't know what country they're going to be from, where they're going to be from, but that alone is going to be, the thing I'm the most fascinated by. Like, who are these people? You know what I mean? Like, I'm really curious to meet them.
That is definitely something that I think a lot of people will be keeping their eyes on as this progresses and as we get closer to the drop, because like, April 27th is, when this is happening, we're getting the releases, and then we'll be able to have the details, the full details after that.
Yep.
So that's exciting. And so, I guess a good segue into this, kind of closing, because I've had you here for over an hour now, and I really appreciate your time. But where should fans be looking for to keep up with your various, projects and your social media?
Yeah, keep up with me on my Instagram page, which is at Ryan Tedder. I'll probably use the One Republic page a couple times. I try to not like use the One Republic stuff, and I use it on rare occasions for my own stuff. Twitter, Clubhouse, Medium, articles, RyanTedder.com, and then you'll see announcements on Origin Protocol and GetDecent_IO. Yeah, and I want to just say I'm grateful for all the people that, the artists and engineers who created this space that allowed artists like myself to make art and jump in create these NFTs that will live on forever. The whole just concept of it just makes my head explode every time I really think about what it is. Like, here's the craziest thing. Whatever we are about to release, I don't want to speak too specifically to it yet, but like what we're going to release will outlast the Keith Haring that's hanging on my wall, the Warhols that are in the corner, my Cause statues, my artwork from Spedo or Basquiat. Like, it will technically outlast all of that, which that's the part that just makes me like, I'll be dead in the 13 generations past me, and I still feel like the blockchain will be here, provided Earth is still spinning and Elon Musk is wrong on anything, which he's usually not. But if he's slightly off and there's still 13 generations from now, humans on Earth, blockchain will exist, and the ledger will exist, and this artwork. The irony that this could potentially outlast everything I've made is crazy.
That is a mind-blowing thought, honestly. Like, just how long the things are going to last. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today here at Whale FM and sharing your experience and your journey into NFTs, and sharing with the Whale community. I know we've gone through a lot of questions so far, and I don't want to take up a bunch more of your time. But is there anything that I haven't asked about, that you just want to throw in? You're really dying to share.
I can't think of. I would say that like this will be the first of several drops. Each time will be different. I already know what the next one's going to be. I mean, like we've already discussed it. I mean, we're looking at a May drop, and there's going to be some collabs this summer. I'm going to be doing some, one-of-ones in the physical space that are things that are like crazy rare, which would be for like One Republic fans or fans of anything we've done that have, I don't get into what they are, but like genuine one-of-one and things you can own in the physical space that are non-replicable. Original demos from songs that are now worldwide, like cultural, what would you call them? Evergreens, songs I've written for other people where I'm the only one who has the original demo and the files. I plan on dropping some of those and going through the clearance stuff on that right now because I've enjoyed them for years, and it's time for someone else like who these songs I've written for other people that have impacted culture globally and gotten billions of streams or sales or whatever. Like, I think they would hold more value for someone else. I've enjoyed them for the years that I've had them, right? And I get once I've written something, it's done. Like I'm focusing on the next thing. So I'm going to be doing some very, very interesting, I'll just say this. I'll be doing drops that no one in this space has done, that are culturally significant. And I would say that, like, for whoever, are the finalists and the winners of this auction, this drop, I'm excited to meet them in person, hopefully in 2022 on tour, because we're going to be doing a world tour with our new album, 2 new albums. And I would hope to meet them in person. So, wherever they're from, if it's from, the States or the US or Canada or Australia or UK or Ireland, thank you in advance. And if it's Asia, xie, and China, arigato. If you're Japanese, it's spasiba. If you're Russian, dziękuję, merci beaucoup, grazie, and muchas gracias. So I'm covering a handful of languages for whoever gets this, because I don't know where you're coming from, but I look forward to seeing you in person.
That is awesome, and I'm super excited. Like, I keep saying, like,
Dankeschön.
Yes, very, very good. So it's definitely been an honor having you here today, Ryan, and taking the time to chat with us and share the exciting details about your upcoming drop, and get everybody a little bit more excited about the NFT space and the movement that's going on, because this is definitely the future, and it's great to see awesome creators like yourself being a part of that. For the whale community who's been listening in, and all the other fans here as well, I want to remind them to make sure to check out your social media and your website, because April 27th, that is when the drop is happening, and we will all be keeping an eye there. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.